All right, hello everyone. My name is John Coghlan. I'm really excited. I haven't done a GitLab meetup in about a week, so yeah, it's great to be back with everybody from the community. And I'm seeing lots of new names and faces here, so that's great. I always like to start by reminding folks at the beginning of our meetups that at GitLab, one of our values is diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And we like to make sure our community is welcoming and inclusive. So everyone, please abide by our community code of conduct. I'm going to drop a link to that in the chat, the Zoom chat here. And if you're not familiar, please take a look and just make sure that you're treating everyone with respect, and it should be all good. If you need to report a violation, please send a DM via the Zoom chat to me, or you can email conduct@gitlab.com. So with that, thanks for joining us. Really excited to be here today. We're talking about GitLab 14. This is a huge kind of moment for us at GitLab. We dropped our .o from our release naming for this one because it's such a big deal. And yeah, I just wanted to spend a few minutes kind of introducing GitLab 14 and why we're so excited about it. So GitLab 14 is our latest kind of release. We release a new version of GitLab every month on the 22nd. We've been doing that for 117 consecutive months. And so, with that kind of history, it can be easy to overlook a release. It can start to feel a little bit routine. And so we love these round number releases because they give us a chance to step back and reflect on all of the hard work and all of the progress that we've made to get where we are today. And when I say we, I'm talking about the wider GitLab community. Over the past 5 years, we've had 10,000 community contributions from thousands of community members, and that's all part of this GitLab 14 release. So thank you to everyone who's contributed, and we're really excited about the release. This release, we think, is like where we're kind of able to bring modern DevOps to everyone. And so, it's really just like a new kind of era that we're entering now. Traditionally DevOps has been, like a tool chain that's built and managed by a team. That pieces weren't really designed to fit together, and as a result, I think a lot of organizations have struggled with the adoption of DevOps, and measuring those results has become challenging. With GitLab 14, I think we're solving a lot of those problems. So now you can have the velocity that you were promised from DevOps. We've got great built-in security tools, and we're constantly providing new insights into where you are in your DevOps journey so that you can understand where the gaps are, begin to adopt, kind of new stages of the DevOps lifecycle that maybe you're not putting to full use, and that'll help filter back to that velocity bit. So, this kind of collective milestone that we've achieved as a company and a community, I think is really going to help enable lots of our users and customers and the organizations that rely on GitLab adopt modern DevOps practices in a way that they haven't been able to do before. So it's been a really exciting kind of week for us since we made this announcement, and we're so excited to be here today. And we have an awesome meetup planned. We're going to be talking to some I don't know if the super user is the right word, but we're going to be talking to some amazing members of the wider GitLab community, including a couple GitLab developer evangelists and a couple of longtime community members and contributors. So yeah, we're going to, each kind of speaker will present about their favorite feature that was released between 13.0 and 14.0. And then we'll have time for a quick Q&A after each of those talks. And yeah, I'd love for everybody to use the chat as much as you'd like to ask questions. You can cheer on our speakers. You can boo them if they make bad jokes. But yeah, let's try to make it interactive and fun. And so with that, I'd love for everyone to start that engagement by just sharing who you are, where you're joining from, and if you have a GitLab feature that you'd like to share, please do that. It doesn't have to be a recent feature. It can be something that has been around for a long time, like GitLab CI. But yeah, please just introduce yourself in the chat. It's always fun to see where our global community is joining these events from. And if you're a speaker, don't reveal your feature yet. You can just share who you are and where you're joining from, because we want to keep a little bit of suspense around what features you'll be sharing today. All right, cool. Well, I'm already over my allotted time, so I am going to hand it off to Michael Friedrich, who is going to do our first presentation. And Michael, you have about 10 minutes, all right?
Yeah, 10 minutes, that's the problem. Let's share my screen. And this is like the spoiler already. What I want to talk about in the next 10 minutes is basically, I found myself on a journey around CI/CD pipeline editing and seeing things like the first steps with CI/CD are like sometimes overly complicated, and it's a little bit about like building Lego bricks together and finding the right way. So I think potentially you have been there. If you started early with CI/CD, you add something to the YAML configuration, doesn't work, you try again, you commit, you push, you wait, and it's not funny. It's lots of trial and error. So, well, then I was thinking, do I need to be a YAML expert to add CI/CD config? Because everyone should be able to contribute, so everyone can contribute. We want to have fast feedback, and we want to have easy CI/CD, meaning to say we can actually focus on efficient workflows. We can focus on development and the things which are fun. So I was amazed seeing the pipeline editor. And in order to try that out, I want to encourage you I didn't share the slides yet, to create a new project. I did it already, so we have it prepared. The thing is, when I want to have fast feedback with the pipeline editor, we just want to try it out. So we can actually navigate in a project into the editor and just go ahead and do that. So it's in CI/CD editor. And it asks me, I don't have a CI/CD or GitLab CI YAML yet. Please create one. Okay, then let's click on that. And I'm not only getting an editor, which allows me to input my YAML, but I also get a pre-filled template, which is super nice. And on the right-hand side, I also get a pane of saying, hey, you are just getting started with CI/CD, run your first pipeline, some additional tips and tricks, and so on. So it's really helpful. I could also use like browse templates and other things. But in this example, I just want to show you what's actually possible. So I'm just removing that and start typing and saying, hey, I want to just like use the Alpine image to run a check, and I want to just use the latest tag, and it says, well, you made a mistake. I get immediate feedback, which I didn't have before. So it tells me something is not right yet. So maybe let's create a test job, and I press enter, and it automatically does the indent for me. And I want to run a script, which is exit one. Exit one is an error. Now it says it doesn't detect this error, but if I make a mistake like this, it will detect it immediately. So if I, for example, miss the 2-space indent in YAML because tabs do not exist, this will be automatically detected, and I get the feedback. So like, this is one of the cases why this is totally awesome. And it allows me to do the live linting and fix the problems as early as possible. Another example is when we're working with CI/CD templates and extends and so on, just to make sure that we are not reinventing the wheel all the time. Oops, therefore, I need to go out there, and I actually want to copy paste this stuff. So we have a job template and 2 jobs which import that, and just using that because I read it somewhere, but I want to understand what it does, and I also want to see the final result of the jobs, because this is using extends to actually import the template. And in this specific case, I could, for example, check visualize. It tells me the test stage and the 2 jobs being created. The linting job actually produces the output, what is there. But I'm essentially interested in what is the merged configuration, the merged YAML, which is actually then executed by the runner or by the GitLab CI runner. And I can, from there, I can see the differences. So it will be the test extents for production will be using the build type release. The other one is debug from the template. And yeah, the emojis are UTF-8 encoded Unicode, not readable yet, but still in the end they will be. So this is another great example that you can immediately fetch the merged YAML and see what it actually does. You don't need to wait for the build pipeline to complete. Yeah, and another cool example is that we can do even more with that. So for example, if you have been using GitLab 14 or the way to GitLab 14 in the past year, you potentially have seen the matrix builds, which are parallel builds in CI/CD, and this also works with parent-child pipelines and lots of other things. The great stuff is this also works with the pipeline editor. Just copy paste in this example, and the visualization shows me, okay, we have the jobs, that is just fine. But the main idea of this configuration is I have my template, which defines the parallel and matrix thing to actually execute multiple jobs. I don't need to reuse that. I can just extend it and have build, test, and deploy. And when I click on lint, I can actually see what is being generated from that. So I will have a multitude of jobs being generated from the parallel metrics. I can verify that. I don't need to wait for any commit, push, runner execute something, and 5 minutes later I get the result in the worst case. But instead I can keep working on here, and I can also see what is being merged inside. And yeah, this is basically what you can do with the pipeline editor on the UI at the moment. And this is, for me, it's a huge lifetime improvement. I don't need to do any test wait and so on. And yeah, that's about it. We can also use, we can also browse templates just to integrate them better. I'm sure this will be integrated even better in future releases. The other thing I wanted to highlight is, and I'm not sure if I'm in time, but you can also automate everything. And this is one of the additional features the pipeline editor added to GitLab as a all-in-one DevOps platform. You can use the REST API. So the API endpoint /ci/lint is available. And you can consume it by REST API clients, by your own scripts, by Git commit hooks, and even more. Especially since you can use JQ, this is a JSON CLI tool. I wrote a blog post a while ago about it. You can use it to pass the YAML configuration, send it as a body to the REST API, and then get the feedback. Oh, this is like it works. So the linting is fine, or it's broken. And you can even fetch the merged YAML, which I did show you in the UI currently. You can receive that on the CLI. You can integrate it somewhere and actually get the whole output. This is described in this relatively long blog post around JQ and JSON and the API. So everything you see in the front end, you can also automate on the CLI and with tools, which is one of my favorite feature in GitLab 14. We'll share the slides now with you, and I'm looking forward to questions. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And you were right on time. So great job with the time in there. I'm seeing a couple of questions in the chat. Sanjay asking if we're going to receive these slides in the video. Yes, we'll be posting the video on GitLab Unfiltered on YouTube. and we'll try to share the slides if possible. I'll just need to check with the presenters because we haven't discussed that yet. Does anyone have a question they want to verbalize related to Michael's talk?
Is there a way to test the build without committing? You basically want to run the CI configuration on the runner. It needs a certain persistence. So if you really want to produce an artifact or a binary build, you need to rely on a specific state. There are ideas or discussions around like not doing the commit, but I think it's the current way is to you have a feature branch, you have a test branch in a merge request, which is a draft, and you actually commit it. It gets sent to the runners, and then you continue receiving the artifacts and can work with everything. And in the slide deck, I've also linked the direction epic for the pipeline editor, and I think there is something inside around this discussion. Or there's a different issue, but we can figure that out. Anything else?
All right, great. And Sanjay and Jeff, I've noted your questions, and we'll circle back to those at the end. The ones regarding CI/CD versus waypoint and secret management in Kubernetes. We'll try to get to those at the end. For now, we'll just keep the Q&A in between talks to relevant to the feature that's being presented. So with that, I'm going to bring up our next speaker, Alejandro. Alejandro is one of our most active community members. If you're a member of like a Spanish-speaking community, you might have attended one of the many LATAM-focused meetups that he's organized for us recently, and also just a really active participant in the GitLab community. So thanks for being here, Alejandro, and excited to hear about your favorite feature. Take it away.
Thanks, Jan. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here today, sharing with the wider community. So give me a moment. I'm going to... Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so today I'm going to share a couple of features that I found my favorite in this last major release, GitLab 14. So again, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Alejandro Medina. I'm a software engineer and the community organizer of the GitLab Colombia community. I'm also a member of the GitLab Hero program since September of last year. So let's begin. First, one of the features that I found the most useful is the SSH key expiration enforced by default. For those who don't know what the SSH protocol it is, I'm going to like a brief explanation. SSH is like a cryptographic network protocol that operates using encryption keys. So you generate these keys on your, for example, on your local machine. And you will have like a private key and a public key. With your public key, you are going to provide to, it can be like your application server. And this will create a secure tunnel that communicates the traffic between these two networks securely. In the case of GitLab, we use the SSH protocol for communicating with a Git repository in a way that is secure, because the other alternative that we can use could be like the HTTP protocol, but this implies using another protocol that is not so secure, like Secure Shell. And also it has another disadvantage that you, every time, like, for example, you do a push, you need to provide your username and your password from GitLab. And when you are using like the SSH protocol, you don't need to provide each time the username and password because you are using like a backdoor. So why is this feature important? Leaving a SSH key valid indefinitely poses significant security risks. So now with the last major release of GitLab 14, SSH key expiration is now enforced by default, and an expired key can continue to be used. So when we are providing our public key to the settings in GitLab, for example, here I have like when you are adding your public key, we are providing like the public key and the title of that key and the expiration date. So, for example, tomorrow, 29th of June, the key will be deleted. And this is important because SSH key management is only good as the policy you have in place and that they are forced. So a good practice is that remember to invalidate your SSH keys after a certain period of time, and also rotate your keys regularly. Another feature that I found awesome from this last major release, being a community organizer involves working with different groups of people. So since GitLab 14, we have now pronouns boards for GitLab's profiles. You can see like here, for example, I show you my GitLab profile with my name. Next to it, I have my pronouns. So gender pronouns are words that people use to refer to others who are using their names. Using person's correct pronouns foster an inclusive environment and affirms a person's gender identity. With this new release, you can now add pronouns to let people know how to refer to you. So why is this important? Pronouns, like I said, are always important. It's also important to never assume a person's pronouns because this can be harmful or even offensive. So adding the pronouns can help normalize the importance of using correct pronouns and fostering an inclusive environment. So those two were my favorite features from GitLab 14. Glad to share with you. If you have any question, I'm looking for it.
No question from me, but just a comment. Thank you for pointing out the pronouns. I know a lot of our team members were really excited about that. And the fact that it was released during Pride Month, I think made it even more significant. So yeah, thanks for shouting that out. And that's definitely something a lot of us were excited about. Any other questions for Alejandro? All right, cool. Well, Michael Aigner, another active community member, is here to join us. And yeah, Michael, are you ready to present?
I'm ready.
All right, cool. Take it away.
Perfect. So, hi. Give me 1 second to share my screen now. So, hello. My name is Michael Aigner. I'm from Austria, and I'm a product manager and also a software engineer at a company called ZKW. And I use GitLab right now for roughly 5 years. And I'm a big fan of it. So and my favorite feature belong many 14 features is the GitLab VS Code extension, because I personally use GitLab GitLab a lot, and I also use VS Code a lot. And I was happy when the announcement last year came out that GitLab workflow is now taken over by GitLab itself. And since then, there are more and more features are coming to the VS Code extension. And yeah, so what is it and what's the benefit? So GitLab workflow makes it possible that you can have less context switches. So you don't have to switch always to the website or something else. You can stay in VS Code, and you have the possibility to use the normal command palette to get to your features or to your issues, to your merge requests or whatnot. And it's pretty awesome when you have big merge requests, because it is a file by file living system. And so it's a great extension. It gets better with every release, and it's one of my favorite features in GitLab, besides many others. So I've not prepared some slides. I want to show you a live demo, how you can use your VS Code and the GitLab extension to get to your project. So everyone normally starts with a git clone. So there's a built-in VS Code git clone feature. And when you have the extension installed, you will see your GitLab instance. So it can handle multiple of them. So for example, you can, in my case, you can use gitlab.com, but of course you can use your private instance 1, 2, 3, whatever you want. And then, enter this, I can now search for my project I want to clone. And for today, I use the everyone can contribute website for the clone. So just enter, then it will ask me if I want to do it via SSH or via HTTPS. So I go with SSH. And then it asks me where I want to put my repository. And the cool thing now is it now fetches my repository into VS Code. And sometimes the progress, yeah. The first thing which the extension will ask me if I want to open this in the existing editor or if I want to open a new window. In my case, I just want to open it in the existing window. And here, as you can see, my repository is now cloned and I can start working. So there are many features in this extension. So the easiest way to get to all the features is open the command palette with Command Shift P, or in Windows Control Shift P, and then type GitLab. And here you can see there are a lot of commands which you can use. A lot of them super useful features. You can, for example, you can use the advanced search for issues and merge requests. So I can search for whatever I want, and it will just pop up on gitlab.com, and hopefully it will show you something. And what you can also do is workflow. You can create snippets, or you can open the active file on gitlab.com itself to open it up. One of the really nice features I personally like a lot, as Michael already mentioned, is GitLab CI and the whole editor stuff. When you have your YAML file, your GitLab CI YAML file, and you want to validate if you have correct content into it, before I always have to copy this text, go to the linter stage on the website, and then press link button and then see every detail if it works. But sometimes I just want to check if my CI configuration is valid, just that. So the cool thing is you can just type Command P and say GitLab CI validate config. And if everything works, you see a notification that your CI is valid. And if you have some errors or typos or something like that, typically detected, and it will show you that you have something to do with your GitLab CI configuration, which is pretty nice. And I don't have to switch to any other system I have. So the next thing which you can do is to choose your, on the sidebar, you can choose to open the GitLab workflow extension. What it do, it will now check all your issues, your merge requests, and from your project, which you cloned. And for example, I can see every issue which was created by me. So if you like to check this out, it's a little bit older repository. But you can now see the communication like it is done on the GitLab website itself. And if I like, I can write any kind of comment, or I can use obviously all kind of shortcuts to close this ticket or whatever you want to do. It should support everything you know from the familiar website. And same thing, you can watch your merge requests. So for example, I have my review app and I want to check it. So I click on the icon, and as in the issue, I can see my merge request. I can see all the labels, all those familiar things from the GitLab platform. And the nice thing is I now can make a merge request review inside of VS Code itself without switching anything. I don't have to check out the branch locally, and I can use my familiar diff view from VS Code. So this is the same diff view as you had in the Git diff view or the typical VS Code workflow. And it's pretty awesome. And one of the newest features in GitLab 14 and extension is that when I have a review, for example, I can say, hey, which merge request I should review. And the nice thing in the new edition is that I now can enter some comments and say, oh, this URL is not correct. Just press at the comment, and it automatically go to the website and with the API and add the comment to exactly the thing. And it feels exactly the same as you would add a comment on the website itself, which is pretty nice, because now I can just go here, use my normal differ as I'm familiar with, and can make my code reviews, which is pretty awesome. And I really like this feature a lot. Some things are left and you can explore it yourself, but for example, in the status bar, you have the possibility to see your running pipeline. So if it's running, it will show you that it's running. If it fails, it will show you that, and you can click on it and switch. So please show me the latest pipeline. And of course, you can also see for the current branch some kind of history for whatever happened. This has a merge request, for example, or not. And yeah, this is super awesome. I really enjoy this feature, and it gets better with every version. And I'm looking forward for your questions.
Yeah, that was great, Michael. I'm admittedly also a VS Code user, but haven't used the GitLab extension that extensively, because I guess I'm context switching so often during the day that it's not that disruptive to my flow. But that walkthrough really wants me to spend more time getting familiar with it, because it seems like there's a lot there. It looks like Sanjay has a question. I'll verbalize it. Can we view pipeline progress too?
So maybe progress itself, so kind of status bar or progress bar, I think not, but you can see if it's running or not, or if it fails.
It's a great feature request. I would invite you to open a feature proposal for the GitLab project, please.
Definitely. Great feature.
Hi, this is Jon speaking. One more question in line with what Sanjay also asked. Can you also view the job outputs from the runner in the VS Code UI through the plugin?
So do you mean that you can see live the CI jobs running?
Yes, something. Yeah, exactly.
So
and
the
output, std out.
So as far as I know, it's not possible right now, but as Michael Friedrich already suggested, please open file and issue on the repository.
Yeah, as Sanjay is also mentioning that. See, yes, pipeline logs to view would be a great feature too. Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
Thanks, Michael.
Would love to see that feature too.
Yeah, I was going to ask Michael, although maybe now we all kind of want this idea. But is there another feature, or like what feature are you missing most from the VS Code extension, do you think? Or what do you find yourself going to have to do in GitLab most, maybe?
Oh, good question. I've filed a lot of issues on the repository. For me personally, because I often have to review big merge requests with a lot of files involved, I would love to have a tree view option. So in the normal VS Code div for the Git repo, you can decide if you want a flat list where you see the directory next to it, but you can switch and say, please show me the directories with my files in it. And this is pretty helpful when you have big merge requests, which sometimes is not available. So that would be my most loved feature, which is, but the one with the CI job output definitely would be also super nice.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as John. I use VS Code all the time. I remember using the VS Code extension back before it was even like officially adopted by us. And basically every feature you just showed would have been on my list of things I would have wanted. And so I haven't used it since. I need to give it another try. So thanks.
All right, any more questions? And thank you everyone for the questions so far. It definitely makes it a fun event when there's conversation happening. All right, well, thank you very much, Michael. That was an awesome presentation. And I feel like I may be coming to ask you for like a full, 30-minute presentation on the VS Code extension someday. I feel like that would be something that's really interesting to folks that are kind of in the same boat as, myself and Brendan, maybe other people here where they're GitLab power users and use VS Code a lot, but haven't put the two together yet. All right, great. Well, that brings us to our last speaker of the day, Brendan O'Leary, who's a developer evangelist, senior developer evangelist at GitLab. And Brendan has put a bit of a spin on favorite feature. I think he's got more than one for us. And lucky for you, Brendan, we're running ahead of schedule, so you can have a little bit more than 10 minutes if you need it. But
well, I'll take whatever time I'm given. I'm even wearing my favorite VS Code theme in shirt form, which is Night Owl by Sarah Drasner, which is my favorite theme for VS Code.
All right.
So that's how much of a VS Code fanboy I am. I got the t-shirt.
VS Code shirts.
Well, I guess it's not a VS Code shirt. It could be anything, but it happens to be, that's where I started using Night Owl. Yeah, and I've got a bunch of features. I mean, I kind of did this little review from 13 to 14. I went back and read every release post in between GitLab 13.0 and GitLab 14.0. And I'm glad I asked John if I could go last, because I knew people were going to want to talk about features I don't want to talk about. So us adopting VS Code, the VS Code workflow was one that I thought of. The pronouns were ones I thought of. Other ones we talked at, I don't know if somebody touched on or not, dark mode wasn't a thing for the web IDE until 13.1, I think. And then dark mode for GitLab itself is maybe still a work in progress, but wasn't a thing before 13. So in just the past 12 months or so, those are things we got. And then we got lots of deployment additions. I remember, when deploying to Kubernetes was the new thing, and we're going to have all this great deployment to Kubernetes, and that sounded really great, with auto DevOps and all that. But we've since added the ability to deploy automatically or automagically to ECS and EC2 and Fargate, and we added all this Terraform support. Right, you can use GitLab as your Terraform state store now. I love that because hate forgetting to set up a state store early in a new Terraform project. You can see the plan in the MR, and that's all great. And so a lot of those things, I think, make 14 our best release ever, which for those of you that have been around GitLab a long time know that our former VP of project, Job, used to say that for every release. And I would tell him when I believed him and when I didn't, back when he worked as our VP of product. So I used to give him a hard time sometimes when I was missing the feature I wanted, basically, selfishly. And I've got a new quote for 14, which is come for the CI, stay for the security. Because John kind of talked about how we're trying to bring modern DevOps to everyone, right? And I think the key there is modern DevOps is secure DevOps. I think you hear people say DevSecOps, sure, great, we can say that, but one way or another, I don't think you can really realize the promise of the invented word that is DevOps without security. And so my kind of number one feature I want to spend more time on is just like security, and specifically, let's zero in on static code analysis, right? Because it's kind of the first step, I would say, on security. And so in GitLab 13.0, on the left-hand side, you had this like new security and compliance thing. I actually didn't figure out exactly when it came in, but somewhere around 13.0 or before, we added this little left-hand thing. It's security and compliance, and there's like a dashboard and a list of dependencies. Great, fantastic. Oh, you got to pay for the dashboard. Oh, okay, that stinks, right? If you look at that same menu item in 14, shoot, I think I even cut something off here, sorry. But this is massive. It's not just like a security as a small feature anymore, right? It's all of these things that comprise like an entire security plan. Things like on-demand scanning and threat monitoring. And I can't click, I'm not editing. I literally cut off some of that slide. I just realized, but we'll look at a live demo in a second anyway. And so my number one piece of this is the fact that we move static code analysis to core. And we did that in 13.3. And I think that's huge because, a lot of that, that static code analysis is bringing together the best of open source static code analysis into GitLab. And so because of that, we don't need, that's not what we're selling with GitLab. We want to bring that modern secure DevOps to everyone. So we decided to move all of those static code analysis tools that are open source themselves, the ability to use that into GitLab Core in 13.3. And then also over the course of the 13 series, we got lots of different languages, right? We added the .NET framework, Helm charts, and moved TypeScript to ESLint in the early 13s. And 13.5, we had a huge customer contribution from a fantastic customer down in Texas in the US of a bunch of frameworks for mobile apps. So Java and Coghlan for Android, Objective-C and Swift for iOS. That's great. In 13.9 and 10, we started to move the static code analysis for a number of languages to Semgraph, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in more detail in a second. And then added general Coghlan support in 13.11. So all of these new languages constantly being added means more and more people can embrace, the idea of security scanning. And then there's lots of other features that kind of go beyond what I would call traditional, just scan my code statically to see what problems might happen. So there's things like secret detection, right? The ability to find secrets that are in your repository that you might have committed accidentally because you were doing a demo and just put your AWS credentials in accidentally. The destandardizing to a JSON report, right? Michael talked a little bit about some of this, it's not an insignificant thing because all of these static code analysis tools, and if you have two different languages in a project or in an application, then you're going to have the output of two different tools. Putting that into a standard JSON, actually is a big deal, right? Because now you can understand it, either machine or human readable. And then we also built all this in the open, right? Like GitLab does, so that folks can bring their code analysis tools to it. And they have, we saw White Duck bring, or White white source. Now I'm confusing two companies, but brought that in as a scanner to GitLab. And then you can also customize the rules. So again, without having to learn the syntax of all these different rules, there's a way to define simple as code rules in GitLab that then define, how you think of the world of static code analysis. It gives you this very simple summarized output, or you can dig into the detailed report. Get a nice summary on a merge request. We'll see in a second. And then also this concept of multi-project, right? GitLab has this advantage of having all your code and having the ability to understand and to model how that code interacts. And so it's not just static, it can be somewhat dynamic, and security people are like squirming as I'm calling it that. It's an overloaded term, but we can understand how projects interrelate with each other and how that can impact the security. So as my mom always says, a demo is worth 1,000 words. So let's talk a little bit about that. So yeah, the thing John pointed out, the thing that I cut off in my slide is the thing I actually wanted to demo, because this project that we're looking at here is the project that originally brought me to GitLab many, many years ago as a customer. In fact, can we see when? These commits might be overloaded a little. Oh, I'd have to go all the way back to the end. I don't know. It was many. You just have to trust me. It was like 4 or 5 years. I think it was 5 years ago. And I've been meaning to set up static code analysis, at least since I've worked at GitLab on this thing. This is a project that's a little side hustle app for Slack. The spoiler alert being that nobody pays for Slack, so they don't really want to pay for your app for Slack. But you live and you learn. And I've never set up, like, for all of the fact that I'm a GitLab person now and get paid by GitLab, I've never set up static code analysis. And why? Well, because it was hard. Well, it wasn't that hard, but there wasn't a button to do it. Well, guess what? Now there's a button to do it. So I can come in here, I can go to configuration. This is just on a free plan. This is like my buddy and mine's, free plan on GitLab.com. I can click this enable button now, and it pre-fills some stuff for me. I can exclude certain, paths. I can say what pipeline stage I want it in. I don't know. I'm just going to leave that all as default, and I'm going to click create merge request. And so with that one button, it now brings me to a merge request. And when I click create, we can see what it changed. It literally went and changed my GitLab CI YAML, and it just added, some little notes about how I can go customize it. Great, maybe I'll read those someday. And then it added to the bottom this test, stage test, SAST, include this little file. Now, again, I could have done that, before the button existed, but somehow the button existing is what pushed me over the edge to be able to go and do it. And the nice thing about this template is it's bringing in a vendor template. So that little friend there is bringing in actually all of this code into my GitLab CI YAML that I didn't have to write, that can then go and run all the tests that GitLab runs against any static code that's in my repository. And it doesn't matter what language it's in, right? If it's Python, it's going to run the Python. If it's Ruby, it's going to run Ruby. Happens to be JavaScript, so it's going to run all of that. And then the other thing my mom always told me about a demo is to have a cooked turkey already when you put the turkey in the oven. So here it is at the end, and you can see it added this test stage with ESLint and Node.js scan and Semgraph scans. And oh, look at this. My little project that I've never run security against has 354 critical security vulnerabilities. Let's expand this. And I can see with this, function call object injection sync. Well, that sounds bad. I don't know exactly what it is, but it sounds bad. But I can click on it and find out what it means, right? It's because, there's user input going into a bracket object notation. Yep, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. And that's not a great thing, right? I need to sanitize that. So just with that one little click, I got all these results. And again, like I said, I can go see the full report that has then, that's going to take a while to load since I have so many. But every single vulnerability, I can create an issue right from here to address it, this is in lib admin. It's probably bad. Probably gonna want to look at that after the call. But yeah, the other huge thing that brings though is this other thing I'm really excited about, which is, we talked about it in the slides, but we're bringing this new static code analyzer called Semgraph in. And Semgraph is this like really, it comes from the words semantic and grep together, right? Two words that we understand as developers. And it has this whole set of rules for lots and lots of different languages. And it can then also integrate directly in to your GitLab instance and put comments on your merge request. So when you make an error in a merge request, it'll actually comment, what the issue is on that merge request. And that's really exciting. And it's also really smart about running that merge, running itself only against your merge request diff. And so again, this is some of the stuff that I'm being given in the background by bringing in GitLab, but I can actually then go customize it, right? So in reality, I'm probably going to want to customize how it's running. And so to do that, I just copied this from our friends at Semgraph and made a separate merge request of the same project that brings that in. And it's relatively simple too, but here I get to specify all the rules that I want. So what are the specific rules? These are ones given to me by Semgraph, but I can also write my own. For instance, I don't think that this scanned for something that I know I do, which is do console.log a lot, which I'd love to not do, and put everything through my actual logger that goes out to my logging service so I can actually see it. So I didn't get it done before the call, but I'm going to go figure out how to write now an extra Semgraph rule to do that. And then when I do it, all I have to do is add one line of code here to my GitLab script, and I get it automatically. So that is me showing you how bad I am at coding and how great GitLab 14.0 is in one fell swoop. So I'll stop sharing now. Or bad, how bad 2015 Brendan is at coding, let's say, 2016. So much better now.
Thanks, Brendan. That was awesome. And I really liked your slide design. So kudos for that. Very colorful. It brought me Miami's like 1980s vibes. Yeah, I see a couple, I see a question in the chat from Anders.
Can it create issues automatically? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think it creates issues automatically for all of them today, because the idea of that security kind of dashboard we saw, so let me show this again as I just stopped sharing. The idea of this kind of security dashboard is some of these things, like, I don't know, let's say this middleware thing I know is not called. I can actually dismiss that as a false positive, or won't fix except risk, or no reason, right? And then I'm able to dismiss. So I think the idea is, now, again, the idea is you wouldn't wait 5 years to run this the first time. And you'd only be dealing with the changes that you made. And in fact, we can see on this merge request where I added some manually, I had it only look at the merge request and not against all the code, versus the one that was looking at all the code and it didn't find anything because all I changed was the GitLab CI. So if I wanted to just kind of start from a baseline of like, okay, whatever security is today is what it is, warn me as I go forward. If I introduce new problems, do that. Or I can say, which ones are the ones that I actually care to go fix or want to dismiss. Hopefully that answers that question. Old projects are always scary with modern tools. Yes, yes, they are. So who knows how many of the Node modules that are in that project, because it's written in Node, are also have major 0-day vulnerabilities? Answer is probably many.
Jeff Stout had a question that outside of static analysis, is there capabilities to scan for known CVEs, or is part of GitLab's SAST testing framework?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So yeah, I just mentioned, like, probably there's a lot of dependencies that I have that are also. So dependency scanning is a thing that we do in addition to SAST. So the SAST is really static code analysis against the code that you wrote, right? So it's looking at the code that's in the repository and analyzing that. Dependency, we call the looking for like active CVs or known CVs, dependency scanning. That's where it goes and looks at, you know, what open source dependencies you have. So in Ruby, it looks at your gem file, or in the case of this node project, we're looking at my package lock.json or my yarn lock.json or yarn.lock, or, you know, given your language, look at all the dependencies and then find any known CVs in those. I didn't demo setting that up, but you can also configure that from within GitLab. We treat it as a kind of a different security scanner. If that makes sense. And yeah, let me just show this page. I can show this page again to show. So when we talk about security, we mean lots of different things, right? So what I demoed today is static code analysis, right? This top thing. But we also have a number of other kinds of security that we talk about. So that includes dependency scanning, you know, the container scanning, also some fuzzing that we can do fuzzing against your APIs, license compliance. Do you have open source licenses that are, you know, out of compliance for what you're building? Dynamic application security testing. Hey, like run the OWASP like top 10 things against an active version of your application. So there's lots of different aspects of security. I focus mostly on SAST because A, they got huge upgrades throughout the 13 life cycle, and B, moved to core in that same cycle.
All right, thanks. I wanted to just quickly go back. There was 2 questions that came in kind of early that we tabled for later. And since we do have a little bit of time here, I think we can quickly answer those. So one of them was, hold on, I got to pull up the document where I was keeping those, and I have way too many tabs open. How does GitLab integrate with secret management in Kubernetes except Vault? Sanjay, did you want to add any more color to that? I guess not. Okay, it sounds like Sanjay is going to type something into, or seems like Sanjay is going to type something into the chat. So in the meantime, there was another person who commented, curious about CI/CD versus waypoint. Did you want to tackle that one, Brendan? I feel like you're pretty familiar with waypoint.
Sure. Yeah, so it's a great question. So I would say that CI/CD versus waypoint is interesting because, you know, waypoint really is, I think, like a CD tool, right? Like it's mostly focused on the deployment aspect, which is awesome. And so then but I guess it does have the concept of building to deploy as well, right? Because it brings build packs to bear. So let me rephrase and say that I was wrong a second ago. So yeah, waypoint has this concept of like use a build pack to build a container image. And so that is something that GitLab can do as well. So like GitLab auto build and waypoint's build process are both based off of the cloud native build packs. So they're kind of basically the same thing. And then, you know, when it comes to deploying though, I think is where the big differences come in. So GitLab has a concept of auto deploy that's part of auto DevOps. I kind of briefly mentioned it. It was originally focused, you know, heavily on Kubernetes and deploying to Kubernetes, and still has a great integration there. We've since added integration to like different AWS services like EC2 and ECS. And then I think Waypoint has a different set of services. So I think depending on what your service is in the end, you may find a smoother path either with Waypoint or with GitLab. The other thing, and Michael was maybe Googling, oh no, he already did. I was gonna say, the other thing is we've done a lot of work and discussion about how to integrate the two. So I think there's a argument to be made that the two could work together really well, with GitLab CI/CD as kind of the orchestration engine. And then, Waypoint is really good at being declarative and having a declarative definition of what, a deploy and release looks like. Now, that's the thing that HashiCorp's made their living on, right? Declarative things like Terraform. And so I think it's really good at that. And so, yeah, I think there's an argument to be made. It looks like, Michael, you shared a workshop. I know we wrote a blog about it. Oh, it's me showing it in the workshop. So yeah, that's great. So I highly recommend, if you have questions about Waypoint, watching that, where I talk about in more detail the differences and how I think they kind of complement each other. I recommend.
Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, and, I've lost track of who asked that comment, but I would encourage them to go back and check out the workshop that Michael shared. Thanks, Michael. You've been all over the sharing the resources in chat today. I appreciate that. And it looks like Sanjay added some color to their question. I was searching for integrating 1Password secret automations with GitLab Auto DevOps. Found there's a solution provided by GitLab for Vault. Can you give me some context where to override GitLab Auto DevOps with secret management like 1Password? I don't have a good answer to that one. Does anyone else, or else we can take this back and maybe circle back with Sanjay after the event with more info?
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree. The answer is there's probably somewhere, but I don't know it off the top of my head either. We put, an integration point in there for Vault because we think Vault's, kind of close to winning or have won secrets management for a lot of deployments. But the way we build things is always on small primitives. So I'm confident that there is a small primitive there at some point that one could leverage and make it work with other secret stores. I just don't know where it is off the top of my head.
Yeah, wait, so Vault is using JOT tokens, so JWT. So if 1Password uses the same mechanism, we could potentially go for that. But I don't know if there is a feature request yet. But potentially it sounds like a reasonable idea. I think there was something around 1Password for automation recently. I remember seeing something around that. But I think we need to circle back, and I also would invite Sanjay to again open a feature request if not existing already, please.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, Sanjay, I just put my email address in the chat, and if you would like to continue the conversation via email, just send me an email, and we'll make sure to get back to you with an answer, even if it's just that, this isn't something that's offered and we need to create an issue, but we can continue that offline. With that, I'd love to, just give a big thank you to all of our presenters today, especially Alejandro and Michael, who are taking time out of their busy schedules to contribute to the community. We are so grateful to have folks like you in our community that could share their stories and help us learn about cool new things and cool new features and how to use them. So appreciate that immensely, Brendan and Michael from my team. Thank you so much for being here today too. And all the new faces in the audience, everyone who was asking questions and everyone who just kind of hung out and learned something new today. It was great to have you all spend this time with us. So really, thanks so much. And hopefully we'll see you at a meetup again soon. And keep an eye on your meetup messages. I'll share a link to the recording and any of the slides that I can in the meetup group. So that information will be available there if you want to follow up on anything that you learned today. And with that, hopefully everybody goes and tries out GitLab 14, learns something new, and can report back maybe at the GitLab 15 meetup on their favorite feature next year. So that's my challenge to all of you. Take care, everyone.